Hello, this is the Disaster Recovery Pro, and this is my video series discussing key topics in information technology with a focus on disaster recovery and business continuity. In today's video, we're going to talk about disaster recovery and ransomware. What is a ransomware attack? And what are some ideas for solutions to deal with ransomware and other types of cyber attack that you should consider applying to your own business or your own recovery plan? Ransomware is a specific type of cyber attack. Ransomware attacks don't really have a typical target. They can go after individuals, companies, healthcare providers, educational institutions, utility providers, and government agencies. They first came on the scene around 2012, and they've been the fastest growing cybersecurity threat ever since. The attack vector for ransomware varies quite a bit. It can be introduced as a Trojan or a file that sits out there and waits for some sort of trigger, sometimes for months. Maybe it's introduced in a phishing attack where a bad actor sends false emails that try to get you to click on links that do nefarious things. And there's plenty of other attack vectors. One that I've seen cited recently is remote desktop compromise, where exploits are used to get control of remote desktop sessions. When ransomware is activated, it typically does nefarious things such as encrypting some or all of your files. It may lock access to your systems and data. And in some cases, it won't encrypt your data, but it will copy it and make threats to release the data to the public or possibly to law enforcement. The point of a ransomware attack is to basically extort money from the victim. So victims will usually receive right away a notification that they're in trouble and that the attacker will provide them with an encryption key to unlock their systems or data or remove the threat of public release in exchange for a sum of money. Payment of this ransom is usually done by some sort of secure means such as cryptocurrency exchanges, and the ask is usually immediate so that the attacker can get their money and get out. Some ransomware attacks are more advanced and more insidious, and they may specifically target things like backups, backup servers, and replication services to reduce your options to paying the ransom. Historically, the majority of ransomware attackers do as they say and restore access when paid, but you can't trust this. By definition, they're bad faith actors. They are attacking you and trying to extort money from you. You really can't trust that they're going to keep their word or that their attack won't leave behind other nasty surprises or exploits or other Trojans just waiting to come after you at some later date. The key to responding to a ransomware attack is to make sure that you have as many options as possible. Paying the ransom is an option, but it may be more cost-effective in some cases to roll back your data to a point in time that predates the attack, or the attacker may take your money and leave you crippled, leaving you with no option but recovery. So one of the things that makes ransomware attacks so insidious and so difficult to combat is what I like to call the synchronization problem. In this example, we're going to look at an individual home user with a laptop who is giving a rudimentary level of protection to some of their data by using a cloud storage account that allows them to synchronize critical data from their laptop out to their cloud storage. This strategy is a good solution for resolving problems such as losing or getting damage to your laptop, because you can just get a new laptop, connect it to the cloud storage, and resynchronize your files back. But this offers no protection whatsoever from something like ransomware or any other malware or other situation where your data gets corrupted. The key problem here is that you will typically have some sort of process running in the background that's looking for changes in your protected folders and automatically copying those changes over to the cloud storage, much like enterprise-class replication works. The problem you run into here is that when a file gets infected, in the case of ransomware, let's say your files get encrypted, before you will have a chance to cut off your replication or even know anything's wrong, those files will be copied out to the cloud storage and you won't have a good copy to fall back to. Basically, as soon as your laptop gets infected, that infection gets copied across by the synchronization process to the cloud storage as well. You will likely only have an option to recover if you have some sort of backup process in place where you're periodically making copies of your data off to some other location that's not automatically synced in real time. And you need a backup process that gives you the option of going back to various points in time until you can find a time that predates the infection. Now let's scale this up to an enterprise class example that relies on replication for disaster recovery. In this case, we have a similar problem, just magnified to a larger scale. Disaster recovery solutions based on storage replication are very common among large or enterprise-sized organizations. Most IT shops in this category need to have real-time or close to real-time replication solutions. So again, in this larger scale case, if your data is affected in production, it's going to be copied across that replication link as soon as it happens and infect the recovery site as well. Keep in mind that more sophisticated attacks are going to be aware of things like replication and operational level backups and attempt to cripple them as well. In this case, the severity of the infection is amplified. Not only is your production site down, but your DR site is now unusable as well since it's also infected. That means that your systems are not protected and you're exposed to a disaster while the infection is in place. One idea for a solution is what I call the third copy recovery solution. In this case, you want to have a third copy of your data. That's a storage array that's out of band with both your production and DR sites that you're not constantly replicating to. You'll want to send a point-in-time snapshot of your production data to this site on a periodic basis, let's say once per week, maybe once per day. And we're going to try and maintain as much of an air gap to this out-of-band storage as possible. So we're only going to make the link to the third copy open when we're actually performing a copy and shut it down after we're done. We'll want to make sure that we have enough storage in our third copy to maintain a backlog of several snapshots to give us some sort of history. The idea here is that you want to be able to pick through these snapshots and find a point in time that predates any infection. So you're going to want to have enough storage to keep as many snapshots as you can reasonably afford. The idea here is that at least one of the snapshots that you have in your third copy will be a golden copy that you can be assured is free of infection in case of attack. You'll want the ability to roll back through several snapshots until you can find that point, which may help you mitigate the attack or may help with investigation by allowing you to do forensics and determine when the infection started and possibly where it came from. And in our next slide, we'll take a look at how you can extend this idea by using a physical data mover rather than a network link to get a true air gap solution, assuming that your data payload is small enough to make this feasible. So I've thrown around this term air gap a few times on the previous slide, so let's take a look at what that would look like as a solution. An air gap solution involves storing your critical data or snapshots of that critical data on hardware that's intentionally not connected to any network and is in a secure facility. The classic pop culture reference for this is the first Mission Impossible movie, where Tom Cruise had to break into a mainframe that had no network connection to the outside world by hanging from the ceiling and inserting a USB drive right into the terminal. That's a typical air gap solution. It's a piece of hardware that's completely cut off from the rest of the world that can only have data written to it or taken from it by a physical device at the location. This functionally works like the third copy solution in the previous slide, except we're physically moving the data rather than transmitting it across a network link. There are some common products out there. You've probably heard of Amazon Snowball, where they send you a device that you can copy large amounts of data to, ship that device back to Amazon, and they'll load that data onto cloud storage for you as part of the service. That's a pretty straightforward example of what the kind of data mover we're talking about would look like. In this model, if you need to retrieve that data in case of an infection, you would need to reverse the process by copying the data at the secure facility onto a portable device and shipping it back to your production environment, or even lifting and shipping the entire storage array from the third site back to production. This model provides a high level of security, but there's a significant trade-off here. It can be very expensive to implement. It's going to involve a lot of operational effort to implement and support over time. So let's summarize what we've learned about ransomware and how it relates to disaster recovery solutions. First of all, ransomware is a very real and growing threat. It's the number one fastest growing cybersecurity threat in the world right now. Ransomware can target anyone, especially organizations that have time-critical operations like healthcare institutions, or organizations that tend to have strained IT resources or smaller IT staff, such as educational institutions. Ransomware can infect and compromise traditional backup and replication, rendering them useless and causing additional exposure when it renders a DR site unusable. Third copy and air-gap-based solutions give you options beyond paying the ransom, especially when you're dealing with an obviously untrustworthy attacker. The third copy and the air-gap solutions also offer opportunities to do forensic investigation to help you determine when and how the infection happened, even in situations where recovery is not a viable option. You always want to have as much ability as you can to follow up and investigate what happened, because that may be the only way that you're going to ever have a chance of getting your money back or bringing the attacker to justice. Thanks for watching today's presentation. If you found this topic interesting and you want to learn more about disaster recovery and business continuity, you can help support the channel by leaving a comment to tell me what you thought about it, clicking like on the video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you won't miss out on my next video. Your support and feedback is very important, so thank you for watching and supporting the channel, and have a great day.